Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism midweek's programme. I hope you and yours are well. Everything's going fine for you. You know, our midweek shows are slightly different. We like to cover different topics, different angles of things, sometimes global, sometimes are happening. We've covered Palestine quite a lot, so we're not going to do that today. I'm actually delighted. I've been trying to get lined up for a while now. I've got here Niall Fraser, who was, of course, was the candidate for the Scottish Family Party. He's an activist and a member of the Scottish Family Party. And he's here to join me today for a chat.
Hello, Roddy.
Welcome, Niall. Thanks for giving us your time.
No worries.
I know you're a few weeks there, a hard slog in Coatbridge and
rather than
Rutherglen and Hamilton. You must be shattered.
I mean, battle weary is the sort of phrase I would take it. You know, people don't know the sort of the emotional toll, the physical toll that a campaign actually takes on people,
sure.
Especially when you're putting out views there that a lot of people they do agree with, but again, it's these controversial views. So you're taking a lot of stick, you're getting a lot of love and hate in equal parts. So it does take an emotional toll, and it's you know it really. The last few weeks or something have just been bliss for me. I've just been playing a lot of golf and sort of decompartmentalizing and just sort of relaxing a wee bit, you know.
Did it put you off, or would you do it again?
No, it didn't put me off, Roddy. It was more that in fact, it gave me quite a lot of encouragement actually with the amount of votes that we got. So we got 319 votes. So we're only 80 votes away from reform. We're half of what the Greens got. We're a third of what the Lib Dems got. So we've sort of come from relative obscurity to being in amongst the fray. And you know, it gives me a lot of encouragement to see that people are actually willing to vote outside the established voting blocks of SNP, Labour, Tories, and Lib Dems. You know, people are actually willing to have the courage to go for the smaller parties, which is huge.
Yeah, you should be very proud of yourselves because you beat two of the established parties. I mean, the ISP with Colette, who's a good little pal of mine, and obviously I'd like to have seen her win it because she's a pal.
Yeah.
And also, but more importantly, a long established, the SSP. I mean, you saw them off, and for that, I mean, you know, the viewers watching going, oh, it's only a few hundred votes. They've no idea how hard it is to get a few hundred votes. And you should be very proud of yourself. It was a great show.
I mean, you mentioned Colette there. That was an unlikely friendship that I made during the campaign. I mean, Colette's a lovely woman.
She is.
And anyone that was coming up to me on the street and saying, you know, I would vote for you, but you're not pro-independence, I was like, well, vote for Colette. Colette is well, one, she's sort of inspirational to me as well, being blind. And I mean, if you can imagine how hard my campaign was, you know, add blindness to that, and it just makes it, it takes it a whole new factor. I mean, going round the doors simply to leaflet becomes a task. You know, talking to people in the street becomes a task. It's really quite an inspirational story, Colette, and again, I've got a lot of time for her.
Yeah, she's a lovely person, and she doesn't have her troubles to seek, and she's been a guest on here a few times, and hopefully she will be again. But the campaign itself, which, you know, I think it was actually won by the Apathy Party.
Yes,
really, because the main parties, as you say, they're always going to take the lion's share, but they're not feeding the voters what they want.
No. It's again, it's you've hit the nail on the head there with the apathy vote, and this is a situation. I mean, the amount of times I've voted, or I was talking to people on the street, Niall, I love what you're doing. I totally agree with all your views, but I'm going to have to vote Labour in order to get the SNP out. And that message was heard right across Rutherglen and Hamilton, right across. And I fear that it's going to be heard right across Scotland coming the next general election as well. But I mean, the SNP are looking at an absolute rout. Purposely, people switching. I mean, it's not like people switching to Labour. They're putting their.
They're staying at home. That's what the figures tell you. The independence vote stayed at home, as it did in 2017 when the SNP ran a terrible campaign. And so you could say Labour have won it by default, but but they won it. That's it.
Well, I mean, they got almost double the votes. Was it not 8,600 to like 17,000 odd? So
yeah, but the actual Labour votes dropped. It's dropped for the last 5 elections.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and it's dropping all the time. So it is, again, it was the stay-at-homes, and the parties should all take. You're not yourselves, not Colette, not the SSP, but the main parties should take the blame that they're not incentivising the voters to come out. I mean, there was an election in Poland last week where they 82% or something turned out.
That's incredible.
Something for them to do. It goes back to the referendum, the independence. Huge when people are enthused. But the fact that this was gruel, and you guys, of course, were squeezed by the big guys.
Yes.
They wouldn't turn up to do hustings with you.
No. So, I mean, they turned up. The original hustings, I only got invited to 2, right? So the first one was a public hustings with the Women Won't Reach political activist group. And again, they're all wanting their safe spaces for women. They totally don't agree with this gender ideology, as do I. A bit of paper doesn't be able to, I could give you a bit of paper, Roddy, that says you're a woman, but that's not going to make a difference. So this one was boycotted by Labour, Lib Dems, the Tory guy was there, SNP. Basically, the three main parties were not there. And even David Stark of Reform walked out 10 minutes towards the end. So, again, I felt like I come out on top of that debate. And I think I came out on top of both debates that I was in. And yet it did not translate to votes. It's just a lot of us... I mean, I'm quite big on social media, so it's hard. I recognise that the last election that I ran in We All for Unity, that no necessarily does your online presence translate to votes, not at all. So I was just trying to be vocal both online. I think I won the online battle, but again, it's winning the online battle means nothing.
No.
So it would seem. So it's more like being a force on the street, because I think that garnered me most votes. Because I was on the street 3 days a week for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually going back to, and it was in Hamilton, the breakthrough for the SNP in 1967, the SNP were able to flood it because they weren't, like yourselves, they weren't getting the media coverage, they weren't getting invited to hustings. So they had to flood it with people and knock the doors and carry the message that way. That's because, that's what any of the smaller parties have got to compete against, because the media are not interested.
I mean, I love what you're saying. I mean, fast forward to today, SNP would have, look, it was 1967, you said. So back then, they would have had an army of leafleters and supporters doing it for nothing. Doing it for nothing. They're doing it because they believe in the cause. Fast forward to just that election. They're paying leafleters, Roddy.
Yeah.
And it shows you the difference.
Yep. In 2015, the Labour Party, who at that time got into that election, had 40 seats in Westminster. They paid to get there. And the SNP had hundreds on the streets. And now, very quickly, they have gone the same way. So I agree with you. I think they're going to lose seats. They had their chance. But
I think with the death of the SNP, I think it gives rise to the likes of ALBA, the likes of ISP, the ones that are the sort of these gargantuan sort of machine parties. I mean, I kept going against the machine, saying the Labour's the machine, Tories the machine. Don't vote for the robo candidates, I was saying. Most people understood what I meant by that. But this sort of Goliath that's the SNP seems to be taking a lot of hits, and I don't think it's going to stay alive much longer, which is a good thing for the likes of ALBA, for the likes of ISP, and for basically all the other smaller parties in general.
Yeah, it'll certainly it'll give the unionists a false sense of they've slayed the dragon, but they haven't, because you'll probably notice yourself now. The most important, the SNP support's dropping, but the independence support is staying static. In fact, it's been hovering around the 50% quite some time. So it's their problem. But if I get back to it, I'm more interested in talking about you and your party than them. And I was actually going through your manifesto, and I've got to say, there's an awful lot in there I could vote for. Yeah. An awful lot I could vote for. Supporting families. Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't want to support families?
Yeah, of course.
Can you give us a bit of info on that one?
So, I mean, what we're trying to create a vision for the Scotland that we want. And so far, no other party has been able to provide a credible vision of what the future should look like. Whereas we're exploring ways where you can maybe people could build their own houses. We don't want people mortgaged up for the rest of their life. We don't want. We want to promote marriage. We want to promote traditional values because that's what the West was built on, and we need to maintain that. We've got a quite a large Christian element towards the party as well, but it's not a fundamental, it's not a religious party at all. But I mean, you'd be daft to think that the West wasn't built on Christian values. So we just want to maintain that as much as possible. And really, I think in terms of policy, we've got such incredible policies, and we're even. I mean, I'm looking at ways to make, schools phone free at the moment, which I think is instantly going to improve the lives of all the students, instantly going to improve all the lives of teachers, improve staff retention, and basically just create this really great environment in the schools again. The schools they're like wee mini war zones now, Roddy. The people coming up to me in the street in Rutherglen saying there's people taking weapons to school. There's hundreds of these bullying videos on TikTok. People are, before they even go and attack someone, the phone's out and they're recording it. So we've got a huge problem with social media in our schools as well. And this sort of miasma that social media has created, that it's going to be hard to sort of deconstruct that. But I think we're actually trying to think of out-the-box solutions to these problems. The one sticking point that a lot of people have with the Scottish Family Party is the abortion policy. Everyone thinks we're
I'm going to come on to that, but can I stick with your person supporting families? If I could just quote from your manifesto contents. Scotland faces apparently intractable problems: poverty, drugs, alcohol abuse, youth mental health issues, cycles of crime, family breakdown fuels these and many more problems. Now, I agree, but with every study that's ever been done, all of those things are linked to poverty. Now, isn't poverty the biggest problem we have in Scotland?
In certain areas of Scotland, absolutely. I mean, I've done I fed homeless for 6 months solid on Glasgow in the Glasgow George Square, and of course it's a huge problem, this poverty and the cost of living crisis, or I like to call it the cost of lockdown crisis, has just exacerbated this. But again, most of a lot of the prison population, a lot of the homeless population are hopelessly addicted to drugs. So I think that there is a poverty aspect to that, where it's to overcome, or you just try to obliviate. I think it's a term that the psychologists use to just get away from this feeling of being horrendously poor.
Hopelessness.
Hopelessness.
Going through it, I mean, everything's great. I love this thing, family autonomy, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to ask you this question. I think I know the answer before I get it. I mean, how do you feel about these things where in schools children can keep secret that a children has decided they want to be trans at the age of 11 or 12?
Oh no, it's cult-like. It's horrendous in the extreme. If your son or daughter was to go to school and you knew that they were purposely keeping secrets from you, that causes a major incident and a major situation. This is like, we're going back to stranger danger these days, right? Where it's like, where you don't keep secrets from your mum and dad. And the first thing they do is don't tell your mum and dad. That's the first thing predators do. So, I mean, this is like a predatory system and it all leads people doing. I mean, they're talking about this, keeping secrets for your mum and dad because of this trans or gender aspect, whereas they know that a lot of the parents would just say no. I had hundreds of conversations where this woman, my leaflets went out, and I just put my phone number on it, and before you know it, I was getting loads of these irate phone calls with people saying, "You want to end the trans ideology in schools?" And I'm saying, "Absolutely, I do." And they said, "Well, what happens if you had a 6-year-old?" And they said, "I'm in the wrong body." I said, "Don't be daft. Go back and play. Get on your bike. You know what I mean? And just move on." Most of the people that think they're sort of gender confused, I think they've got that idea implanted in them by this education system that they've got now. And again, it just the trans ideology just feeds this anti-family situation that we're in.
And we also, two other things I noticed in your manifesto is that you want to repeal the smacking ban legislation.
Yes.
And if I could maybe take it into a different, by all means, when we go into schools, you believe that, as you say, punishment should be in school. Do you believe we should revert back to corporal punishment in schools?
I mean, we then need to go back to corporal punishment, but I always go back to my childhood, my primary school and in high school. The punishment exercise, it was a punishment exercise where it was just like lines. You know what I mean? You'd 100 lines was a bad one, a really bad one, Roddy. Maybe truanting was 100 lines, but I don't think we need corporate punishment brought back in the schools, but I just think there's such a huge lack of discipline in the schools. The teachers have lost the classroom. They're no longer in control of the classroom. And we're trying to bring that back.
But wouldn't you say, Niall, that it comes from the homes? Discipline starts in the houses. The respect should be taught and shown in the house, should it not?
Yes. Again, this absolutely, you're 100% right. And the teacher shouldn't have to sort of instill any respect in the kids. It should all be from the home. But again, this is in order for that to happen. I mean, the best environment for a child to grow up in is with a mother and a father in a married situation, and this is what a lot of this stems from. I think is that we've not got a lot of that. We've got a lot of single parents that are struggling to discipline their kids because they're obviously working as well. Everybody's in this situation together.
I mean, as I say, I agree with so much in this manifesto. Teaching children that they can choose their gender is extremely harmful. Absolutely. Now, I mean, we've had recent cases where people convicted of rape, men, because they said they were under 25, that they weren't in full control of their faculties. Yet you want to teach primary school children that they can change their sex. You can't drink or get a packet of cigarettes till you're 18, or is it 21 now for cigarettes? I don't know. But why this one particular thing at such a low age?
I don't know why it's this one particular thing, but it's this disconnect, right? Where it seems like it's so hypocritical to say that a person is not of their own faculties. They're not in control of themselves up until the age of 25. They're getting treated like minors, basically. Whereas a kid, say anywhere between 10 and 15 years old, is saying, I want to change my gender here. Absolutely. I mean, let's roll out the red carpet to the Sandyford, and you can walk along to it. You can be put on this conveyor belt in misery, that I call it, of drug, hormones, drugs, maybe even potentially surgery. And this will last the rest of your life. You'll become a pharmaceutical customer for the rest of your life. I mean, nobody wants to sign up for that, but they create this illusion that changing sex, changing gender is just as easy as putting your hand up and say, I am. I mean, it's the whole thing's farcical in the extreme.
Well, I'm an old man now, and I can remember it was all in black and white when I was a young boy. But, I think anyone can understand, male or female, when you're going up to that age, 12, 13, 14, 15, when your body's going through these changes, you don't know if it's New Year or New York.
Yes.
And you have to get a little older.
And I think back to when you're a teenager as well. Every day, it's like huge in your life. I mean, as you get older and wiser, time doesn't matter as much. But a single day to a teenager could mean, it's a huge impact. So to make such incredibly big decisions at that age is just not right. We shouldn't be imposing that on the kids either, and we shouldn't be implanting ideas like that in the kids' brains.
I agree with you. And it's time I didn't agree with you, because we can't have this all. We can't have this all. And look, when it comes to is abortion, let me say personally, I'm against abortion.
Mm-hmm.
In my, I believe in my. I'm in my second wife now. My first wife passed away, but my first wife, we lost 2 babies through natural abortion, miscarriage, if you prefer. So, and I'm opposed to abortion. However, I'm not in favour of pro-life. Your party's pro-life. I think women should have that choice, because we don't want to see abortion going underground again. And I'm old enough to remember when women used to come over from the Republic of Ireland over to England or up to Scotland or up to the north of Ireland. You don't want to get into backstreet abortions. So that's my personal opinion. But I'm willing to be persuaded by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you look at the abortion policy now, right? So it's anywhere up to 24 weeks, right? And beyond 24 weeks, you can get an abortion on the grounds of disability. So we wanted to end that straight away. So I mean, just say your partner to be, Roddy, is pregnant. She's 25 weeks on, 26. And then the doctors say, well, we've done a check and we've discovered that your kid has Down syndrome, or they've got a cleft palate, or they're maybe you name a disability. And then they say, do you want to abort on the grounds of disability? And I mean, my argument to that is basically, well, my life is just as important as that of someone with Down syndrome. They're equal. So I disagree entirely that we should be aborting on the grounds of disability after a certain time. The abortion question it's one of these like recurring arguments. No one's ever going to have the perfect solution to it, because what I was doing with people in the street, because a lot of them said, we'll vote for you, but you're against abortion. I've said, well, this is the conception, and this is, I'll try to get the camera right. This is conception, and this is birth. Where do you think the line should be? And a lot of them are like, well, we'll just put it, 12 weeks in, 15 weeks in. Well, there's parties that are fighting for the full decriminalisation of abortion all the way up to birth.
That's a different argument now. That's a different argument, with the greatest respect. I mean, if you want, I agree, you should not have abortion on demand. And just because, this baby is not perfect, no, you shouldn't be able to at a certain time. But that's a different argument. But you want to stop it completely, your party. Am I right, or have I misread?
I don't think we want to stop it completely. I think we need to bring the time down, the time frame down. I personally don't think that we should do away with it altogether. I think that we shouldn't be using abortion as a means of birth control. Absolutely, this is the thing where it's being used as a means of birth control at the moment, and a lot of there's. When you hear stories, girls going up and they're on a 7th or 8th or 9th abortion, and you're just thinking that there's something gone very wrong here, very wrong. So I'm personally, I'm not as pro-life, from the point of conception. But I mean, it can't be too far away from the point of conception for me. Other than, we're just getting into murky waters. When is a person ensouled? I mean, this is a deeply philosophical question, I suppose. But is it conception? Is it a couple of weeks in? When's a person ensouled? So we're asking like really quite important questions, I suppose. But none of these other parties are even broaching the argument. They're all pretty happy the way it is.
No, well, I think it's a medical question and all sorts of other questions coming out. But I just wanted to make clear. But it says pro-life. So is the party position that they're completely against all abortion?
That's a good question. I would say that the vast majority of the people in the party are pro-life, and they're pro-life from the point of conception, yes. So I would say that the party's like pro-life in general, and I would say it's like a no to abortion at any point. you know. That's what I would say. But I mean, I'll have to defer to Richard on that. Richard's the leader of the party. I'm just a member, ran for them.
Just a worker bee, like the rest of us.
Just a drone, you see, just like everyone else. The Queen sends me my commands, and I go out and deliver them.
Yeah, you also have quite radical, maybe that's a bit unfair, for adoption, fostering, and IVF. Would you care to clarify that for the viewers?
Well, again, we the situation we've got in Scotland, right, is that if there was no abortions, Roddy, if there was none, and we're wiping out a whole town every year, 20,000 abortions. So we would overcome this birth decline, this birth deficit. We're at I think we're at 1.28 births per family, per you know, we should be at 2.1 for sustainability and to grow the population. But we are so far, we are less as a percentage of births than China was with their one-child policy. We are we're at such a bad point on that. But if we could, if we were to limit abortions, then of course we would need to sort of encourage fostering, encourage adoption, and all that jazz, you know. So they go hand in hand, these things.
But you don't think it links back again, because a lot of them, it's poverty that, you know, a lot of people decide perhaps to abort. They have 2 children, or they can't work, whatever. But a lot of these decisions are because poverty, it doubles as back.
I understand what you're saying now.
So we need to, surely the most important thing for us, whatever party, whatever side of the debate we're all on, is to eradicate, or well, you can never eradicate it, poverty. Let's attack poverty before everything else. Would you not say that's the best way?
No, I mean, absolutely. I think me, myself, if I was in a more financially stable situation, I'd have plenty of kids. You know what I mean? This is the thing. It's having the means at your disposal to actually take care of a child that, you know, and it doesn't bring undue stress to the couple. So I really can't agree with you anymore. But poverty is it's not the root of all evil, but it's a stumbling block, certainly when it comes to, you know, having children. A massive stumbling block. I don't, you know, I wouldn't put it odd into that, but it's a gigantic factor, you know, gigantic.
I'm just going through these down the list here. And older people, I see you want to see those with an elderly relative living in their home should be entitled to substantial council tax reduction. Great policy.
Absolutely.
Or I would say, and never mind and an allowance.
Yes.
I know my first wife, I go back to, I was her carer, and I think I was getting something like 30 quid they were handing me to look after.
A pittance size.
It was, you know,
it's not good.
I had other means. Probably why I was getting 30 quid, I don't know. But I don't know what the normal is. It's not a lot of money anyway.
Well, when you talk about the way we treat our elderly in this country is absolutely abominable. And we should be ashamed of ourselves. It should be a constant sort of fountain of shame. The way that we treat our old. Even if I look back to even my own grandmother, I mean, she might be forced to sell her house in order to get the care that she needs in her latter years, when she's worked her entire life. And she's worked to buy her house and worked, and all of that has been taken away from her. It's just it's no great. I mean, seeing your sort of life's achievements evaporate right in front of your eyes as you're being taken care of is just, it's abysmal. It's disgusting.
We have the worst pension. The UK state pension is the worst in the developed world. It's, you know, to think that Mexico and Albania are getting better pensions than the Brit. And here where I live in Spain, the pensions are on about €500 a week each.
Wow.
And if you're married, you're on 500 each.
Right.
And that's why everyone goes to Gran and Grandpa's at the weekend. The whole family gathers. And it helps the family unit, because
of course it does. I bet it does.
They've the disposable income. You know what I mean? And it makes it's you know, the other thing is old age pensioners ain't going to put their money in Panama.
No.
They'll spend it.
I doubt that.
You know,
I doubt that very much.
When they spend in the local community, it means that the local shops, bars, restaurants need extra staff. who then pay tax. It's easy. It's just people that make it difficult. Now, you mentioned at the beginning, I know you want to go into education. You want to do quite a lot there.
Yeah. We need to turn it upside down, Roddy. And I mean, the way that schooling's done now is it's so wrong. It's again, they're like we many war zones. We've created this weird social media contagion. We've created with the extraction of the smacking ban, with the extraction of these disciplinary measures. The schools and the children know that they're running the school at this point. It's like the prisoners knowing that they're running the prison. The aspect of the schools that are really want to tackle straight away is the level of violence. The level of violence in our schools is unbelievable, Roddy. It really is. Hundreds of videos, bullying videos, people taking weapons into school, and they're doing it for like sort of social media cred, social media clout, and stuff like that as well. So if we could take away that element, add in the disciplinary element, and just redo it, start again. I think this, having spoken to a lot of teachers as well, and even all the way from like nursery practitioners to high school teachers, there is this feeling that this wave of children that come back to the schools post-COVID, this have been the worst ever. And obviously it's been because they've been in the house climbing the walls for about 2 years, and now they're right back into the schooling environment. It's no conducive to helping the teachers. You know, the teachers on the front line are really struggling here. But we've got some radical ideas to change the way that education's done. I'm looking at ideas again to sort of trial these technology-free schools, which I think would be such a massive benefit to both the students and the teachers in terms of improving academic performance, improving staff retention, and basically bringing an element of control back to the teachers. You know, this no distraction. If you've got your phone in your pocket all the time, you're prone to distraction. You know, a one wee ping, one wee vibration, and you know what kids are like when they get distracted, and you see this multiplied out across the spectrum. And when you like say TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, these 10-second, 20-second clips that's just constantly feeding, it's lowering the attention span of a lot of kids, and it's causing a lot of damage. So I think we're at least the party that are thinking radically about reforming education to the point where it's actually functional again. At the moment, it's not functional.
No, what in higher education? What do you think? This as if we're pushing everyone into university now. You should get a degree, and you get some of these degrees and the most bizarre things.
Exactly.
Basket weaving underwater and things. Degree.
Gender studies in in aquatics and stuff like that. It's mad.
What waste of money?
I would I go back to my school where me and my brother, I was more academic than my brother. But my brother went to college. I mean, straight for 4th year, right into college to do a trade. And he's probably earning more money than me now. And this is the thing, like trades are one of these functional things. It's always going to be required. You're always going to need plumbers, always going to need electricians. It might not be the flashiest lifestyle in the world, but by God, you can make a good living doing it. And even I've known people through my high school life and everything that were electricians, sparkies, joiners, plumbers, whatever it is, and then they've went on to start their own business and they've been hugely successful. So we need to sort of encourage trades, hands-on activities, and if we're leading people down this academic route of nonsense, like you're saying, they're going to hit a brick wall eventually, Roddy. You know what I mean? They're going to hit a brick wall eventually. Well, actually, none of your experience or none of what your quote-unquote knowledge is applicable here. So
they should join one of the big political parties and become a
Green member, yes, they can be right up there with Ross Greer.
Exactly. These ones, he didn't even finish his course, and 1,700 votes got him in. Wild.
That's a shame.
The clock is always an enemy in this programme, so I want to rattle through. And this means, Niall, you're going to have to come back sometime and we'll go into some of these things in greater depth. But I see this great older people reforming education, schools, education, higher and further education, which we've covered, valuing life. Absolutely. But again, I go back to the We're talking here about pro-life, and we've just gone through that. Now, in immigration, now up to now, I mean, I suppose some people would say, "Oh, that pro-life, that's kind of right-wing," but in your immigration, you're probably very left-wing, because you're like a lot of us. You believe that we need to bring in immigrants and it improves our society.
Well, again, personally, again, we can't have people arriving illegally on boats. I mean,
Sure.
we just can't have that. We can't have. I mean,
If we stop bombing their countries, they wouldn't come here.
Yes, there is that element as well. But again, these people are traveling through, XYZ countries before they arrive at us. It's like if we're looking at the boats in specifics. I mean, I've talked to a lot of right wingers that'll say, you know what, I'd take all the boats there is, as long as we could stop legal immigration, because that number's way higher than the ones that are coming in the boats. But again, we need a functioning sort of immigration policy that doesn't put sort of a detriment on our own population, if you know what I mean. They need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They need to be sort of incrementally introduced to our society, rather than just swaths of people landing on boats, and then you've got this situation where there's hotels popping up everywhere where they're like these silos of illegal immigration, and it just causes havoc in the local community. We can't have that.
But sure, a lot of these immigrants that come here because they speak English is because it's actually a leftover from our colonisation days, where they've learned English, so they're going to go where they can speak the lingo. They don't want to go to Poland or Germany because they don't speak that language, although Germany takes in a lot more than us.
Well, I mean, it's interesting what you say about the English language. I'm not sure if it's a sort of leftover from colonisation. I think it's more of again, this YouTube situation, this social media, most of the content produced, Netflix, all the big TV channels and all the big shows are all in English.
Propaganda.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's English language propaganda. It's the best. But again, it's similarly to if you've got children, or children that have got like a slight American accent, even being Scottish. Because they've watched all this YouTube stuff and they've sort of acclimatized to that accent. But I don't think it's it might be to a factor that it's left over for colonization, but I think it's more of this. The English language is still like the world's biggest language, I think.
Sure
and
is.
a lot of people want to come to the home of that language, I suppose.
As I say, we're going on defending freedom. You believe freedom of speech. For example, we know
All the way.
If you misgender someone, ridiculous, you can go to jail. I mean, absolute madness.
Absolute all the way, Roddy. And I'll tell you a few stories on that as well, right? So, the last Saturday of our campaign, it was like the Super Saturday. We're out on the streets of Rutherglen, and who's there? It's the Cabaret Against Hate Speech guy, Tom Harlow. So he's gathered these trans activists, and they're just hurling abuse at me from across the street over a big tannoy system that was it was actually really annoying the whole street. And what happened was a couple come up to me and says, "You're not going to report them to the police? They're saying all these hurtful things about you." I said, "Absolutely not." You know why? Because it's the catch-22 situation where I'm actually fighting for the right to call me names. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care if you want to call me a fascist, a bigot, or whatever it is in the street, as long as I can retort back. You know what I mean? If we need to hear all speech in order to decipher what we like. So I was in this weird situation where a lot of people were asking me if I was going to report these guys to the police. Absolutely not. It's nonsense reporting people to the police for words spoken.
Tying a ribbon. Oh, I was frightened. Were you?
Well, I mean, just weeks, maybe a week or two prior to the election, there was a gentleman that called Patrick Harvey a deviant. It was in a BBC interview. Patrick's doing an interview. The guy walks past, says, "Patrick, you're a deviant." The next minute, it's all over Twitter. The guy is arrested and charged, and then it's on the 6 o'clock news on BBC. And you're like, how can this happen?
I know. Well, I got to revert back to my age again, and I remember sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, and that's true.
And why isn't this being taught in schools? And even to the point where, I watch a lot of football.
Snowflakes.
It is. You see, if you watch a lot of football, Roddy, I think you're a good boy knows. So during these adverts, you'll get all this online hate, online abuse can leave scars, and you'll see this scar forming, on the people. No, it can't. No, it can't. I mean, we need to be sort of encouraging this mental fortitude and mental strength rather than this victim mentality where you can't say anything about me. You can't, I'll take offense immediately and I'll phone the police. It's just, again, that old adage, I always keep bringing it up, like you just said, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt you. It was the line to give to a child who was being bullied at school. It was the perfect situation because they understand entirely that actually it's no physical. You're taking words are in the mental realm. So as long as it's not getting physical, then by all means call people what you want. I mean, just don't be, an ass, basically.
Yep. You've probably seen it up there in the chat. Techies chibbing me along. So there's so much I want to get through, but I'm going right down the list here. Now we've got unifying society, identity politics, gender equality, immigration, extremism, enhancing democracy, other policies, public finance, NHS, police, justice, law, transport, housing, environment, energy, Scottish culture, COVID-19, and last but not least, you've stuck down the very last thing, which is the main block in Scotland, the Constitution, as the last and as an afterthought. You've got Scottish independence and you linked it in with the EU. And I've looked at what you said on it, and there's different in your manifesto. It says you want to see support for independence is clearly above 50%. On another occasion, you've said 60%. When I say you, I mean your party.
Yeah.
For a period of several years. Now, how do you determine that? And why should it be that? Why then for any policy should you not? Should you only be elected if you get 60% of the vote?
All right, I see what you're saying. Again, I want to point out the Scottish Family Party is neutral on the point of independence. On the
you're not really, are you? You're not.
Well,
really.
I mean, I'm a unionist. I'm no. And there's people in a party that
but
are
anyone
independent
that's
supporters.
saying that you need to have 60% for several years and will maybe let you. You don't accept therefore that the people of Scotland are sovereign.
That's not what. That was the very first question that was asked in a debate. It was,
let me put it
are
this
the
way
people of Scotland sovereign?
In an election run by the British state, a UK general election, it is not determined by 50%. It is determined by seats. That's how they do it.
Yes.
So why shouldn't it be that if a majority of people in seats in Scotland get independence, that is a mandate? Why is it different?
If that was the situation, then we'd have a mandate already, right? Because there's that many.
Well, we did. People like me believe we did have the mandate. It was the person who had that mandate that didn't use it. So that was always the policy up until 1999. But but you're saying 60. So should it be 60% for everything, or just the Constitution?
I mean, it wasn't me that wrote that policy again, but I know you're sort of talking about the Scottish Family Party in general. I know I'm on the firing line, but I mean, see, going back to the 60% thing, I mean, how do you measure it? Like you're saying, how would you measure that accurately? Because it needs to be accurate. It can't be a Savannah poll, a this, that, another poll, because we don't know how. I mean, the sample size, the sort of. We can't use that as an accurate reporting mechanism for something that's so important like this, a constitutional question. But I mean,
but there's nothing more important than constitutional war. So why should we allow any government in Westminster to rule without 60% then?
Without 60%, what do you mean? So I mean, obviously,
if it's to be 60% for Scotland to be allowed to have some kind of referendum, why should we then allow a government in on 35%? Why should that be? I mean, it's got to be goose and gander here, surely. If it's 60% for Scotland, it should be you don't go into Downing Street without 60%. And if you have to do that,
Oh, right,
having,
I see what you're saying. Well,
I
mean, the electoral system we've got in place has been there since day dot, right? First past the post.
That's the rules.
And that is the rules. And the people who have got the most, the people in the party are in government. It's just the way it is.
So your policy actually is not very fair, is it?
Not the way you're describing it, but again, it's
I'm just saying as it is.
Well, fair enough. Again, I think that since 2014, and by the way, I voted yes in 2014. Okay, since 2014, I've then moved to the position of no. Why is that? Well, one, again, it's like 2014 and 2016 sticks in my brain, right? One, if we had won the vote in 2014, then so be it, independence, right? But you can't have this once in a generation vote, which was stated over and over again.
But that's a unionist trope. That was said in a television interview. It was never in writing. It was never in the Edinburgh Agreement. And the rules in the United Kingdom are quite clear. The first past the post wins the seat. The most seats gets you into government. That's the rules. So if that's the rules we're playing by, surely you can't condone a policy that says we're changing the rules for one thing only.
Well, again, I go back to 2014, right? If we lost that vote, right? So it's like I sort of like to characterize it as like me and you are playing football, Roddy, right? And it's the first person that's got a goal. I score a goal into you, and you say, "Hold on, it's best of three." And I'm like, no, that wasn't the game that we sort of agreed to. And it feels like this is it's like moving the goalposts again and again.
It's not. Personally, it's democracy.
If there is that overwhelming support, but again, we've not seen that overwhelming support.
50% plus one.
No, I agree with you there. I agree with you.
That's all that's needed. I mean, if you look at Northern Ireland and the Good Friday Agreement, they've got it every 7 years they can have one. Nothing about 60% or 55%. So why should Scotland be different? Or Wales?
Well, again, it's one of these policies that I'll need to speak to Richard on, but I take your points. I mean, it's 50% plus one all the way, Roddy. I'm with you on that.
Good.
I just think that I mean, you talk a huge section of the population that would be upset by that, but at the same time, I understand that that's democracy. You know,
let them be upset. When it suits them, they're democratic. When it suits them, they're undemocratic. That's the way. Anyway, as you probably see, Techie's giving me, she's shouting at me.
Yeah.
Niall, this just means you've got to come back, mate. I'm sorry, you don't get away this. It's not a one-off. You've got to come back. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, Roddy. I look forward to coming back, and I look forward to speaking to you again. It's
been my pleasure. And to you folks, hope you and yours keep safe till I see you again. Take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.